With the help of Hashem, we are learning brachas daf lamed zayin. We are mamish in the heart of brachas. Taka learning about what brachas do we make for what products. Just make a few quick intros to the intro. When we learned yesterday on daf lamed vav amud aleph that for oil, the way the Gemara clarified exactly when you make a bayre priya eitz, and the way Rashi, we learned the Gemara with Rashi, because you planted the olives lechatchila for the oil, because oil is more chashuv than the fruit itself. And the Gemara says the words leis lei iluya achrino. In other words, it's the final product. Not like flour that's changed from the way it was, but it's still going to change again, so you make a bayre priya eitz. That is the base for Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, not that everyone follows his opinion, who says that when you eat chocolate, what bracha do you make? According to him, bayre priya eitz. Mamish the same logic. Because the chocolate that we eat is more chashuv than the bitter bean. It's planted for the chocolate, and also that it's up to the final stage of production. Another clarification that when we learned yesterday on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis about pilpulei, I was saying pepper. I want to correct that. It's peppercorn. We were speaking about peppercorn. That was that sugi. Okay, we're going to start the famous Gemara about oides and doichen. Famous because halacha lamaisa, Sfardim and Ashkenazim, whether we have rice on Pesach or not. The source of it is brachas daf lamed zayin. It's a machloekes Rashi Tosfos how to translate the words of oides and doichen, not in the context of Pesach, that also, even on this daf. But firstly, benegeh brachas, what bracha do you make for it? We're going to be learning about the bracha al michya. We're going to be introducing the bracha of boid and nefashos, very unique bracha, right? We're going to be translating, we're going to be reading a Tosfos how to teach the words of boid and nefashos. We're going to have now the whole question, what is the bracha that you make before you have oides, whatever oides is, and what's the bracha that you make after you eat oides. We're going to be learning the concept that if the person is performing a mitzvah now, that he or she did not perform for a very long time, then you have to make also the bracha of shechiyanu that we are familiar with. What happens if you have a dish that has in it bread, but the bread is being cooked, you understand, in the dish? So we're going to be learning the following concepts, that if the bread pieces, it's a dish, is in the size of a kazayas or more, then it's bread. Hamoitzi, berchas hamazon. Question is going to be, what happens if the pieces of bread are smaller than a kazayas? Question is, do you make for it hamoitzi, or do you make for it mazoinus? What's going to happen if you make bread, but the batter that you are using to make bread is very battery? In other words, the dough is not dough, the dough is batter. And that will be another very important criterion. Something doughy, hamoitzi. Batter might transform the final product into a pastry, and then you'll make for it a boide min mazoinus and many other hilchas, halachas and brachas. Let us start where we left off. We left off on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis, 3 lines before the bottom of the Gemara, right? Gufa, we just quoted, we learned that Rav and Shmuel the Amri Tarvayu, Kol Sheyesh Boy. Focus on the words. Anything that contains in it Mechameshes Aminim, any one of the 5 grains. Just to say, I think we were flying yesterday. The 5 grains is wheat, barley. Spelt is like a derivative of the family of wheat, and then you have oats and rye that are like toldois of barley. So wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. Anything that contains in it from the chameshes minim, you make a bayre minim mazoinus. Implying, even if it's only in the minority. Right? We finished yesterday by speaking out to Tosfos. Tosfos gives one exception. The one exception is that if you put the flour of these 5 minim lidabek just as a binder, then you're not going to make for it a bayre minim mazoinus. That's the machlokes by Twizzlers, by licorice. What bracha do you make for licorice? Those who say you make a bayre minim mazoinus is because they hold that the flour that's in there isn't only as a binder, but it's also for texture. The question is schnitzel. What bracha do you make for schnitzel? We make a shahakal. Why do you make a shahakal? Even though the minority is the flour, and the eggs that you put around it. But this is the rule, kol sheyesh boy mechamish saminim mevarchim alav b'naminim mezainis. So, first of all, some people will only eat schnitzel. First, they're going to have a mezainis. And they'll have a shahakal separately. Then they'll have the schnitzel. Or if you're having it in a meal. But others also say, kol sheyesh boy means that the grain has to be in it. By schnitzel, and maybe now for the kindalach, for the onion rings, and these very unhealthy foods, so it's around it. But anyways, this is the issue over here.
You also use breadcrumbs when you say it's maybe a mitzvah.
We'll get to the breadcrumbs today. Here, it's more than breadcrumbs, because here you're making from the breadcrumbs, you're mixing it with eggs, and then you're wrapping it around. But here's the rules. Anything that has in the chamesh asminim by the minimum zaynas, ve'it menami, and we learned another statement, Rav and Shmuel, that they both say another similar expression, and one seems to be covering the other. So the question will be, why do we have to have both? What's the second memra? Kol shehu, anything that is of mechamesh asminim, anything that is made from it, anything that is of it. You get it? Sheyesh boy. You have to know Lashon HaKodesh. Sheyesh boy. Kol shehu. Now one covers the other. Says the Gemara, no it doesn't. Vitzricha. The ashminin kol shehu. Kol shehu means it is. It is. That would imply that mishum the isa be'enei. Because the flour, right, is like the primary product. The main, the ikir. But if they only would have said that, what would be in the case where there is a little bit of the chamisha saminim, but it's in the minority? Daf lamed zayin. Then you would think, you would think you don't make a mezainis. So that's the kamash malon kol sheyesh boy. If it has in it, even if it's not what you would call primary, let's speak about quantity. It's in the minority. No, if you have the chamisha saminim, it becomes halachically the primary ingredient. So let them just say that. If they're saying anything that even only contains a little bit of the chamesh asminim is by the minimum zaynas, avade, if it's the ikir, no. See, every statement of Chazal is teaching you two dinim, what they're saying and what they're not saying. Everything is to explicitly teach and to implicitly teach. So that would imply, at least we would erroneously come to the wrong implication. We would think, kol sheyesh boy, chamish asaminim in, but oires and doichen, something that has in it oires and doichen, hold these words for a second, then loy, then you don't make a hamoitzi, right? I'm sorry, that you don't make a mezainis, thank you, you don't make a mezainis, blame it on the coffee. Oh, now the mind is open. And why? Because mishum, that the oires and doichen is only a little bit, the alidei tarayvis. But we would erroneously think, if you have the oires and doichen be'enei, a product that has in it as the main ingredient oires and doichen, then we mistakenly would have thought, neim afilo oires v'doichen, you also make a b'nei minimum zaynes. That's why Kamash Malon kol shehu mechamesh asaminim. There is the mevarchin and all of them in mezainis, and that's to teach you that oires and doichen, even if you're eating oires and doichen, or if it's the primary ingredient, it's the majority. For that, nafilu isa be'enai loy mevarchinen boidei minei mezainis. Okay, oires and doichen. Guys, remember, Berachot Lamed Zayin, we're familiar with this, but that's the source. Look inside the third tosfot. You get both opinions already. On Daf Lamed Zayin. Rashi, Perish, Oires, Mil. Guys, Mil in English is millet. Okay, and just to know that Doichan, the way they translate Rashi in English, that Doichan, according to Rashi, is panic grass. Says tosfot, V'yesh mefarshim. You know what Oires is? Read inside tosfot. Isn't it funny? Raizu. Rice. That's it. Arois. Thank you. Ulahai perusha yesh lefarish, that doichan is millet. And that's the big question when it comes to our rice. Right, according to Rashi, rice is not mentioned in oires and doichan. Oires is millet, Doichen is panagrass, whatever that is. But let's go with Tosfos. At least for here, we're not paskening any dinim, but let's refer to oiras and doichen as rice and millet. So the Gemara just said right now that the first statement here, one of the statements of Rav and Shmuel is to teach you that even if you have pure oiras and doichen, you do not make for it the bayre minimum zaynis. Okay, frag the Gemara for oiras v'doichen loime v'achin and bayre minimum zaynis. Ve'hatanya. Rav and Shmuel are taka from the earlier era, from the earliest era, but they are amoyroim. We have an abraisa. If you look in front of pas oiras, they bring in front of a person oiras bread or pas doichen bread, bevarich olav tchila v'soif. You make a bracha before and after. Kim ma'ase kedera. Ma'ase kedera is porridge. Porridge is something that's made out of the 5 grains. Porridge means that instead of making the grains into flour, and then normally you make it into dough and into bread, you pounded the kernels, it's not fully ground, and then it's cooked. I know I said yesterday the word oatmeal, but oatmeal is only oats. It's any one of the 5 grains. Porridge. That's what it means. Ma'ase kedera means porridge. So the Braisa seems to be saying that for oiras bread and doichen bread, you make both the bracha prior and the bracha afterwards, like you would make it for Ma'ase kedera. And continues the Gemara. Okay, and what do we find elsewhere regarding the brachas? How can Rav and Shmuel go against the Braisa? Clarifies the Gemara. The Braisa never said explicitly you make a bayre minimum zaynis. The Braisa says that for oiras bread and for doichen bread, you make a bracha tchila v'soif kim ma'ase kedera. What does that mean? Kim ma'ase kedera, but v'loy kim ma'ase kedera. It's similar, but it's also dissimilar. Kim ma'ase kedera, to emphasize that you have to make a bracha both tchila v'soif. However, v'loy kim ma'ase kedera, but the brachas are not the same. They are similar that it needs a bracha before and after. As we learned in the Braisa, bracha achas me'ein gimel. What do we call that, my friends? Al hamichya. Ve'ilu hache, by oiras bread, by doichen bread, betchila mevarach olav shehakol ni b'dvarayim. Everything is created in the present. Now, from God's words, right? Shitas Habal Shem Tov in creation, ula basoif, boirei nefashos, rabbis v'chesroinan al kol mashe baram. Now the tosfos over here, the top tosfos, if you ask a person who even understands or thinks they understand Lashon HaKodesh, taich boirei nefashos, Peirish Hamilas. So again, boirei nefashos rabbis, that God creates many souls, v'chesroinan. Don't look inside tosfos. Taich. What's v'chesroinan? And their lacks, and their needs, and their deficiencies. God creates their deficiencies. Says Tosfos, no. Why would we bless God for creating deficiencies? The chesroinon means that God creates everything that's needed to fill our deficiencies. Some of our deficiencies is that we need to eat. So when God created nefashos, knowing that we'll need to eat, God created that which fills our chesroinim. But what fills our chesroinim? The needs that we have to eat is very basic. The kindness of God is that not only did God create those items that are there only to fill the need, God created more than that. Al kol masha barasa. And on top of that, God created things that we don't, to fulfill our needs, it's enough to have meat and potatoes. But God, in His kindness, created something that we don't even need. It's here only for pleasure. And what is that? Look inside the top tosfos. The chesroinon means lechem umayim. You see, tosfos gavaldik. Not chesroinon that we need lechem umayim. The chesroinon means God created the things that we need to fill our lack. That's bread and water. And then we continue. Al kol masha bara lahachas b'nefesh kol chay koloimer al kol masha ba'olam shegam im loy baram yachaylam ha'olam lichyos. There are many things in the world that we would live without. We don't need it to live. We can survive without it. What did God create l'tainug ba'alma? Tapuchim. Apples. Gavaldik. You don't need apples. You can live without apples. That's what, when people learn tosfot, that's what they tell their mother. Dafnish. No, you need an apple, dafnish. L'tainig ba'alma. It's nice that God created l'tainig ba'alma. Okay, now at least we know that the Perish Hamilas, l'shitas tosfos of nefashis. Okay, so back in the Gemara, in the Vital we're standing, that for oides, you don't make a minimum zoinus, and you don't make an alamichim. We're not done yet. Frek the Gemara for oides, lav, maisi kedeirohu. Isn't it like porridge? We should be making a minimum zoinus. This brayse is referring to Hilchas Brachos. What's a maisi kedeira? So he says, Chilka, like we mentioned, when you take flour and you turn it into bread or pastries, you grind it into flour. That's the normal seder. If you're making a porridge out of it, Chilka means you break it into two. You split it into two. Now, there were madregas. Today, everything is done with machines. There's making a porridge that has more texture, that is thicker, that is more piecey. There, you make chilka, you split it into two. Terages is you split it into three. Some people made a porridge even out of flour. Zaris is when you split the grits into four. And Ereson is when you split it into 5 pieces. You pound it more. Right. And you make out of it a porridge. And va'oides. In other words, if you make a porridge out of rice, the Bryce is saying ve'elohein ma'aseh kedeira. They are all in the same category. Everyone knows that for the 5 grains, porridge you make a mizoinus. So how can you say you don't make a mizoinus for oides? It says the Gemara, really it's a machlokes tanoim. Ha mani Rabbi Yochanan ben Nurihi. The Tanya Rabbi Yochanan ben Nurihi oimer. Oides is min dagan. And it's a lot easier, at least from memory, when many areas of halacha go on the same track. So we're discussing here brachas. Where do we have the same question? If a person eats chametz on Pesach, the chayiv kares, what happens if a person has chametz dika rice bread? So the Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds that oides is taka like the grains, and therefore if you made it into a dough and it became chametz dik, you chayiv kares. And therefore, you know what the rule of matzah is? What item is good for matzah? An item that if it becomes chametz, you chayiv kares. They go together. And therefore, can you imagine from matzah having a rice cake and being yoitze? Avol, but that's only Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Avol Rabbanan loy. Loy means you're not chayiv kares. You can't be yoitze for matzah because it's not mizoinus. It fits together. You got it? Good. Fragen wir Rabbanan loy, it's euch in der Stemmes. V'hatanya, ha'koises is achita, if a person chews a raw kernel, Rashi said before, koises doesn't mean chew and spitting out. That's another topic. It means you chew it and you swallow it. What bracha do you make for that? What do you think? What bracha do you make for kernels? Huh? Shkoyach. Hadama. Correct. Mevarach aleha boide pri hadama. But if you grounded it and then you baked it, you baked it and ubishlan, then you cooked it, you made it into a ganze dish. So says the Braisa the following: Bisman shahaprusas kayamois. If the pieces are still intact, then batchila, before you eat it, you make hamaytz lechem in haaretz. Ulabaso, if you make Gimel brachas, guys, remember the rules. Gimel brachas means birchas hamazon. Even though nowadays birchas hamazon is comprised of 4 brachas, but the first bracha was formulated by Moshe Rabbeinu of birchas hamazon. The second bracha, noid l'chava ala koil, was formulated by Yeshua. That's why there's a bracha for the land of Israel, al haaretz val hamazon. The third bracha was formulated by David Shlomo. The fourth bracha was formulated after they allowed us to bury Harugei Beitar. So since it came much later, right? That's why we always refer to Birchas Hamazon here in Chazal, the 3 brachas. Me'ein shalosh is ala michya. But you make a gimel brachas Birchas Hamazon. However, imein paprusas kayamayis, but if the pieces are not intact, huge machloikis here. What does that mean? We're going Gemara Rashi. Rashi says, David, all this is for your cook, all this is for you. Leaders, guys, the best. Ein haprus kayomois, says Rashi, it melted. Ein haprusas kayomois means that it completely melted. Meaning, according to Rashi, if it did not completely melt, we'll get more in Amud Beis, then what we're saying now doesn't necessarily apply. So imagine, so you had bread, but because then you put it and you baked it into a bigger dish, and then you cooked it, you processed it so much, now it's melted, it's dissolved. That's a better word. Nemoicha dissolved. Then betchilim avarach Allah bara min mezainis, ulabasay avarach Allah bracha achas me'ein gimel. Wait. Weiter. Hakoises as oires. Same thing continues the Braisa. If a person chews and swallows oires, and we're going to continue with tosfos. Oires means rice. The first white line. Mevarach olav. Same din. Boire pri ho'adama. Got it, guys? If oires means rice, we're learning now a shita, right? That if you eat rice, you make ho'adama. However, tachanu and afa'oi and ubishloi, same thing. It means that you transformed it. Here again, here it's unlike the din of the 5 grains. Even if the pieces did not dissolve, batchila mavarach olav b'yde minim zoynois ulabasayif mavarach aleh bracha achas me'ein shalosh. End of Braisa, and the Gemara says gevaldik. Who do you think authored this Braisa? Mani. If this Braisa was authored by Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, what does Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri hold? We just read. The Amar oiris min daganu. So then the kasha is hamoitzi lechem min haaretz v'shalish brachos b'yeh leveruchay. Not a b'yde minim zaynis. Elolav, that this Braisa was authored by the Rabbanon, and nevertheless, what do they say? They say that you have to make a b'yde minim zaynis. So this refutes Rav and Shmuel that say that you only make a b'yde minim zaynis for chameshes haminim, whether it is kol sheyesh boy, whether it is kol shehu. And indeed, this Braisa tiyufta. Now we're not done yet with the sugya of oiris, because in the Vaila we had the option of hamoitzi, we had the option of mezoinas, we had the option of hadama. We're going to learn later an option of shahakol. I want to just jump to the end just for a moment, that our minig by Chabad, and this is Bechlal, in many questions of brachos, you always have whom to lean on, but it's, if you could, the way you get out of the question is, before you eat rice, eat a mezainis, and make a b'yde minim mezainis. Eat hadama, another, and make a hadama. Eat a shahakol, and now you're covered, because you already made all of the brachas, and or make a hamoitzi, and have it in a meal. And then enjoy your sushi. Weiter. The question is, by sushi b'chlal, what's the ikir there? That's a bigger question. Oh, this is so much fun. We're eating sushi for years. Many people never thought about that. Because in the sushi you have rice, you have a shaila, then you have the seaweed. Whew, maybe that's the most chashuv's part, who knows, I'm just kidding. Then you have what they call fish.
Sometimes you have tempura flakes also.
Oh, here we go.
It's a lamdish sushi.
It's a lamdish sushi. All sushi is a lamdish. Right there. If a person is chewing a kernel, chewing and swallowing, guys, these were the candies. Nebach. That's what they nashed on. That you make a bracha b'yde minei zeroyim, that the God who creates species of seeds. So guys, remember the first Mishnah, right, 2 daf ago, that Rabbi Yehuda was machalik, that there's 2 different types of hadamas. There's hadama, and then there's b'yde minim deshoyim. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't like to throw items in a general bracha. He wants to specify as much as he could. So the Gemara says, Loikasha, this Braisa goes according to the Tanach Rabbi Yehuda, and what we learned above, it goes according to the Chachamim, like we learned in our Mishnah, Va'ala Yerakos, all Yerakos b'yde pri adama. Rabbi Yehuda says no, b'yde minim deshoyim. So in other words, so Rabbi Yehuda, he desires a greater amount of specificity when it comes to the brachas prior. Amar mara koises esoiris. If a person is chewing and swallowing rice, he makes a bracha b'yde pri adama. However, the Braisa continues, if tachanu, you already made it into a shtickle flour, and then you baked it, and then you cooked it. Here we said, even though the perusais are kayamais, even though it did not dissolve, you can discern, you can see shtikalach rice guk. Batchila mevarech olav v'deminim zoynois ulabasoy bracha achas me'ein shalosh. Frag the Gemara, how can the Brisa say that ve'hatanya labasoy after you eat that rice dish ve'loy klum? What do you think ve'loy klum means? Ve'loy klum means garnished. Gemara Rashi. Rashi says ve'loy klum never means nothing. Ve'loy klum means that Rashi is around 8 lines from the bottom. Ein to'un mi birchos peiros eretz Yisrael v'loy klum. You don't, not only do you not make a birchas hamazon, you don't even make, right, the ala peiros, we don't make the bracha that we make after having from the shivas haminim, right? The me'ein shalosh. V'loy klum means you make a bite in a fashis. It's amazing. V'loy klum means you don't make anything unique, but you make the bite in a fashis. So here you see clearly, you make a bite in a fashis, amar apsheishes, loy kashem, that you make me'ein shalosh after eating oires that follows the Tana Rabban Gamliel. This latter, but I said that says the words v'loy klum, which means you make a bite in a fashis, follows the sheet of the Chachamim. The Tanya, zehaklal, we're learning a Tosefta, kol shehu mishivas haminim, anything that has in it from the 7 species of foods that we praise the Holy Land specifically for: wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olive oil, and what does honey mean? It means date honey, meaning dates. So, Rabban Gamliel Oimer, if you never learned brachas yet, you'll be shocked. What do you say after you have a meal from any of the shivas haminim? Not only on wheat and barley, and wheat includes in it spelt, barley includes in it oats and rice, shalosh brachas. If you have a su'uda on figs, you bench birchas hamazon, the whole birchas hamazon. The chachamim oimrim, no, bracha achas me'ein shalosh. Umaisa, Rabban Gamliel, v'hazakenim, shehoy mesubin, ba'aliyah b'Yerichai. What is Yerichai called in Nach? Ir Hatamarim. So they were gathered and they were learning in an attic in Yerichai, and v'heviu lifneim, what food was brought? The local food, a koisavos. Koisavos, my friends, are tamarim, are dates. And v'achlei, they had a meal. The way the system was then, and by some groups, ad hayom hazeh, that when a group eats together, it's not only when you say you bench, you are the one that say Rabbi Samevel benchen. You bench means you were the one that articulated the words out loud. No one else said anything. They listened and they answered amen. So he asked Rabbi Akiva to lead the benching. Now the 8 dates, there's a machlokes between Rabban Gamliel, who was there, and the Chachamim. Do you make a me'ein shalosh? Do you make birchas hamazon? Whichever one he will do, he'll be going against someone else. So, kafatz ubeirech Rabbi Akiva bracha achas me'ein shalosh. He jumped. He jumped means that he didn't ask what he should do. I should bench. And what did he bench? He didn't do what Rabbi Gamliel says to do. Rabbi Gamliel was the Rabban, he was the head. So Amalei Rabbi Gamliel Akiva ad masayata machnes roishcha bein hamachlokes. Why are you sticking your head in the machlokes? I'm asking you, what should have Rabbi Akiva done? Whatever he would have done, he would have been in the machlokes. So what was the criticism? So what's the answer? What would have been his option?
Not bench.
Say no, not me. It's greater people. But sometimes the only way you get out of a machlokes is get out of that situation. Rabbi Gamliel wanted him to do that. So Amalei, Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbeinu, my master, my rebbe, so you would think it's a machlokes, and therefore I should have just avoided benching, but limadatonu Rabbeinu, you Rabbi Gamliel, you taught us that yachid v'rabim halachic kerabim. So based on your teaching, I followed the rabbim. Good, smart. Now let's go weiter.
Did you say earlier that Rabbanan said that we do say Alamechia?
Different Rabbanan, we're going to get, that's a problem. Shkoyach tzvika. Okay, now Rabbi Yeshua Oimer, Rabbi Yeshua says, one second tzvika, one second. Here we're speaking about dates. We never learned this yet. Here we're speaking about a machlekes by dates or any other of the shivas haminim. We're not speaking about rice, and we're not speaking about chita v'soira. Whether you make a birchas hamazayin or bracha me'ein shalosh, which is how we do it. Now let's go right there. Rabbi Yehuda says in his name. Now who's his name? If we're speaking about Rabban Gamliel and the Chachamim, it must be Rabban Gamliel. So Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabban Gamliel, Kol shum shivas haminim daf lamed zayin omid beis. Vilav amends the bach. He adds a vav after the lamed aleph. Vilav min daganhu. In other words, the shivas haminim includes chitan so'ira. So the 5, and not or min dagan itself. However, v'loi aso oipas. Right, it was not made into bread. Rabbi Gamliel oimer shalish brachas. Pas means that after you made it, you didn't cook it and bake it. You left it the way it is. So Rabbi Gamliel says you make shalosh brachas. The Chachamim hold bracha achas. Bracha achas means me'ein shalosh. Atkan, it's the same. Just to make something clear, that when he says that, why didn't they mention bread? Clearly bread. Bread lekula alma you bench. Avada, we're not going into that machlekes. The machlekes is if it's not bread. However, kol she'ein lo mishivas haminim v'lo min dagan. And what's the example now Rabbi Yehuda gives? Now that's the link to our sugya. Going pas oides v'doichan. So Rabbi Gamliel oimer bracha achas me'ein shalosh. This whole brayso speaking about the after bracha, the bracha achroina. However, v'chachamim oimrim v'loi klum. What does Rashi say? V'loi klum. You make a b'ayda nefashos. Gavaldik. Now says the Gemara. B'mai oi kimta. Says Rashi. Look inside Rashi. 3 lines from the top of the Amid. B'mai oi kimta la'hu de la'el. In the brayso we learned above that it says ula basoif bracha achas me'ein shalosh. If it's Kirabban Gamliel, that was the whole way we resolved the question. It's not going to work because Amos Seifa did Eisha. Look at the latter clause of the beginning of the Braisa. What did the Braisa say? If ain't Prusas Chayamois, we learned Rashi, but it dissolved. Then Mevarach the Batchila Mevarach by the Minamazoinois, Ula Basay Mevarach Me'ebrach Amen Shalish. Now that statement goes according to who? Mani. It's nishtemes. Why? Right? Because if this brayso is authored by Rabban Gamliel, hashta akoisavas. If a person just eats dates, daisa means porridge. Porridge is not first it was bread and now it dissolved. Lechatchila it was never bread. Madach, if even the emphasis here is on the daisa. Omar Rabban Gamliel, that you make a proper birchas hamazon gimel brachos. So ein perusais kayamos. He would never say you make an alamichya. He avada would hold you make a birchas hamazon. So now we're saying that the seifa of the Reisha cannot be Rabban Gamliel. Ela pshita, it must be the Rabbanon. So now we're back to the contradiction between the Rabbanon and the Rabbanon. No, we had 2 braises. In the first braisa we learned that for Oides, what do you make? Alamichya. Then this braisa we learned, what do you make after Oides? V'loi klum. So which bracha achreina do you make after eating rice? Don't bring in Rabban Gamliel at all. The braisa cannot be authored by Rabban Gamliel. So you're right, the Gemara says, L'oilam Rabbanon. And therefore you have to amend the first braisa. Even the first brayso did not say that after a rice you make a me'ein shalosh. V'tnei, let an ayin, amend, gaba oires, ulabasoif, ein mevarach olav, v'loi klum. What do people do today when they have rice? What's the bracha achreina? By the nefashos.
What do you do when you have tomorrow?
What do we do today when we have tomorrow? No, we don't pass like Rabban Gamliel. Yachad v'rabim, alachi kerabim. No, we make our me'ein shalish. In other words,
how many?
That's shiur. We'll get to that later. We'll get to that soon, actually. Okay, weiter. Today we'll learn a little bit about shiurim. Very good. Soon. Amarava. We're going into different food items. Hai rihato dechak loy. Rihato is what we learned yesterday in Daf Lamed Vav Amud Beis. There's a food called chavetz. Chavetz wasn't your average porridge. It wasn't just from the grains pounded and made into a hot dish. You added to it, this is important, they added to it oil and honey. That's why we learned yesterday a machlokes, whether you make for it a bayda mina mezainis, whether you make for it a shahakol. What's the ikid? Is the ikid, the machine just went kaput over here. So rihata de chakloi, so this type of chavetz was made different whether it was made in the villages, whether it was made in the city. The ones that were made in the villages, you understand? So taka, there was honey, and there was oil, and there was flour. But since they lived in the villages, so there's a greater abundance of food. You grow the food there. So therefore, the mafshi bei kimcha, they would add a lot of flour. So mevarech by the minimum zoinos, in order it has to do with the amount of, or the ikir of, maitama, because the smida ikir. If the mechayza, but if this porridge was made in the city, and it had the same ingredients, flour, honey, and oil, but they were stingy on the flour. The loy mafshi bei kimcha, mevarach olav shahakol nebedvaroi, maitama duf sheikar. This Rava doesn't follow how we open today's shiur, that kol sheyesh boy mechameshes haminim, you got to make a bayda minim zoynas. No, he holds something can have in it flour. Whether you make a mezainis or not depends on what is the ikir and what's the tafel. And the ikir and tafel here has to do with quantity. So he's being practical, and wherever there's an abundance of flour, a flour is more nutritious. It's the most nutritious. So they would add more flour, you can afford it. You make a mezainis. Wherever there was less flour, there was more honey, so the honey becomes the ikr. For honey, bees honey, you make a shahakol. Now, the hadid amar Rava, then Rava changed his mind. What's after Rava, even though we had an Amad Aleph, Rav and Shmuel were refuted. No, Rava then accepted it. Guys, Rava B'chlal and Shas, we paskin like Rava. Even Abaye and Rava, halach is like Rava chutz miyal kegam, because he's called the Basroi. We paskin like the last one. That idi by the minimum zoinus, even if there's just a little bit of flour, because the Rav Shmuel the Amri Tarvayu kol sheyesh by mechamish aminim mevarchim olav by the minimum zoinus. Omar Rabbi Yosef, another gewaldige topic. Hai chavitza, chavitz, right, is a cooked dish, with small pieces of bread in it. What would be a dish today like this?
Soup. Croutons?
Could be. You have a dish, could be soup and croutons. You have a dish that in the cooked dish there are small pieces of bread. And the question will be now, what bracha do you make on it?
Caesar salad? No, that's not cooked.
It's not cooked, it has to be cooked, according to Rashi. So like this.
Schnitzel.
No, schnitzel we mentioned because it's not in it. That's what we began today in the intro. So if like there is bei perurin that they have in it pieces of bread, here it depends on the size. If the bread size is a kezayis, in other words, you put b'chal bread in it, you cooked it. When you cook something, it begins to dissolve. But it's a geblibin at least the size of a kezayis, then it remains a din of bread. And what's the din of bread? Not mezoinus. You make a proper hamaitzi. And therefore, is what we call birchas hamazon. However, the leis bei perurim kezayis, it began as bread, but you cooked it. So now it became fabrekelt. It became so splintered, crumbed, that every piece has less than a kezayis. Even though the sum total is more, but the piece itself is less than a kezayis, so now it goes down to a bayda minim zoinus. Bayda minim zoinus, because Rav and Shmuel says, kol sheyesh bay mechamish taminim, bayda minim zoinus. But you're not going to make a hamoitzi anymore. And therefore, achas mein shalosh.
Even if there's a lot.
Even if there's a lot. We'll see this latter statement, the lenient part, is a machlokes. The first part, everyone subscribes to. Okay, this is the shita of Rabbi Yosef. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Mina amin Allah, that if it has the size of a kezayis, for sure you got to make a hamoitzi. The Tanya, Hoya oimed umakriv menachos b'Yerushalayim. If someone, Rashi says, if a Yisrael was bringing a korban mincha which is made from flour, there are many different type of menachos. As we learned in menachos, some of them are also fried. In other words, it's a dish Says the Braisa, first of all, there's a klal that if you do a mitzvah that you have not done for a long time, you make a she'echiyanu. Omer baruch she'echiyanu v'giyanu lizman hazeh. Weiter the Braisa. Nitolan la'achlan. Who eats a mincha? Mincha is kache kachim. Who can eat kache kachim? Only kohanim. So if the kohen takes to eat it, what bracha does he make? Mevarach hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. A kemitza is put on the mizbeach. The shiraim are eaten by the kohanim. You make hamoitzi, and people think, what's the chiddush? Huge chiddush. Because every mincha before it was brought, you have to take a kemitza from it. You take a kemitza from a piece of bread. How do you do that? Kemitza means you stick your hand in a particular way and you scoop out the contents of that bowl, and whatever fits in between these three fingers, the index, the middle, the ring, and then you use your pinky to make sure nothing protrudes from the ring finger. You use your thumb to swish back and forth to make sure nothing protrudes from the pointing finger, from the etzba, and what is inside the three fingers, that's called a kemitza. How do you do that from a bread? And the answer is that before they would make a kemitza, they would break it, they would tear it into pieces. Pasais, oisa, pitim, a pasuk in the Chumash. So here we're speaking, and some of them are also fried. So that's a perfect, one of the minchas is what we're talking about. It began as bread, then you fried it, now it's a dish, it was torn into pieces, says the Braisa, that you make a hamoitzi. And we learned in another area, whenever they would break it into pieces before they took the kemitza, how large was each piece? The Braisa says, poisason, you break it into a kazayis. So you have an example. You have a mincha. It was bread that was fried, pieces. You make a hamoitzi. Why? Because it's a kazayis. Amalei Abaye elo ma'ato letana devei Rabbi Yishmael, who disagrees in menachos as to how large or little should the mincha be broken into, and they are of the opinion, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, parchan ad shemachzirin l'sultan, that you have to really bring it back into crumbs. You have to not cut it into pieces like we learned in menachos. You fold it once and you break it in half. Like origami. You fold it again, you break it into half. That's 4. No, yeah, again and again and again and again and again until it's little pieces. Fakir, that's going to be a raya listoid. That's going to be a raya that even if it's less than a kazayis, you still make a hamoitzi. But according to you, that you say, Rabbi Yosef, that if it's less than a kazayis, you don't make hamoitzi. Hachinami, deloi boy beruch hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. And v'chi tema hachinami, that if before they did the kemitza they broke it down so little, then they wouldn't make an hamoitzi. I got a problem. Ve'hatanyam liket mikolam kezayis v'cholon. This Braisa is speaking about someone who is eating on Pesach, either chametz or matzah, and they're speaking about someone who doesn't have a piece of bread, but the person is taking remnants of other breads, crumbs, and he's gathering them together. And he's eating it. And the question is, if it's chametz, are you chayiv kares? If it's not chametz, are you yoytze the mitzvah? So the Braisa is saying that if the pieces of bread are like the remnants of the menachos, and it says, liket mikulam kizayis v'cholon, not that you took actually from the remnants of the menachos, because this Braisa is not speaking about kahanim. This Braisa is speaking about Yisraelim who may not eat menachos, but if you took from other breads that were made similar to the way the mincha was made. So the Braisa says, Im chametzu anish kares. Ve'im matzah adam yoytze yedei chavasi bepesach. So memelo what? So Rashi says, Gevaldik, look how we think. If I can gather crumbs of remnants of breads, and if it's not chametzdek, I fulfilled my mitzvah. What does that prove? So Rashi says, Umi deka amar yoytze bo yedei chavasa bepesach because of achilas matzah, as it says in the Torah be'erev toichlo matzos. And the Torah also says the word lechem in reference to matzah, lechem oini, is a raya that when you eat crumbs, if you eat enough of them, you were yoytze eating lechem from matzah. So it's a given that if it's called lechem, you got to make hamoitzi. Oh, back in the Gemara. So all of this is just building up a kasha. How can you say that if it's less than a kezayis, you would not make a hamoitzi? From the fact that a person can be yoitza by putting crumbs together, if it's not chametzik, to the mitzvah of eating matzah, because it's called lechem. If it's called lechem, you got to make hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. So the Gemara says, no. Yeah, you broke it into little pieces. You had bread, it was broken into pieces. You gathered them together, but you didn't eat crumbs. You took those crumbs, and you made them again into a new dough, and you made them into a new bread. That's why it's called lechem. That's why you're yoitze. Taka here, you make a hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. But if you gather crumbs and you don't make a new dough out of it, then you would only make, so far that's what he's saying, a boide mine mizoinus. The Gemara says it can be. And this is weiter speaking about a person who for their matzah, they're eating crumbs. They're putting it together. So the Braisa says, when do we say that if it's not chametzik, you're yoitze the mitzvah of achilas matzah? V'hu sha'acholam b'chdei achilas pras. So let's go. Achilas pras. Pras means a piece. Actually, it means a half. So there was the standard size of bread in the times of Chazal. This is the machloikes. Rashi Berachot Lamed Zayin Amud Beis says that a standard bread is comprised of, has the volume of 8 eggs. So half of it means something that has the volume of 4 eggs. That's really a big machloikes rishonim. So actually, let me correct myself. It's a machloikes tanoim. Rashi is paskening like the one that says 8-4. Other opinions hold it's 6-3. The poil mamish, when we speak about shiurim, achilas pras is a certain time frame in which you have to finish eating that amount. For matzah, you have to have a kazais, minimum. Really, we eat today 5 kazaisim. Whoever makes a ka'ara. But that's already, some of it is a chumrah. But the minimum, you got to eat 1 kazais, theoretically. Okay? I'm saying minimum because really you have to have really at least a kazais of matzah, you have to have a kazais of afikoimen. Let's go to the matzah. A kazais. But when it comes to a mitzvah of eating, it's not enough for me to say, I ate it. What happens if it took me 2 hours to eat it? So that means I'm nibbling on it. It does not combine. In order for the amount of food that I consume to combine into the minimum amount, it has to be eaten within a certain time frame. And that time frame is the time that it takes a person, an average person, to eat a half of a loaf. Achilas pras.
And reconstituted.
No, before reconstituting. Just to be familiar with the term, Zman achilas pras. Achila b'zman achilas pras. But what does that mean in minutes? You go from 3 minutes until 12 minutes. Now, that's mamash min hakotza, el hakotza. So the Braisa says that when are you yoitzi eating matzah? As long as you ate a kezayis of crumbs, as long sha'acholon, taich the words acholon. Acholon is lashon hara. If you ate them, the crumbs, in the zman of achilas pras. Frek the gemara, if you're eating pieces of bread that are less than a kazayis, it's not b'chlal called bread. It's not lechem. You make a mezoinus. You don't make an hamoitzi. The Braisa is referring to where you made it into a dough and you made it into a bread. So the lashon should not have been lashon abim. It's a technical proof. It should have been lashon yachid. Hi sha'acholam. You ate them. Who them? What them? Where them? We're not speaking about crumbs. She'edusan, you made it into a new bread. The Braisa should have said sha'acholoi mi boyalei. B'chlal nikan, that when the Gemara sometimes amends a Braisa, the Gemara can do it. If the Gemara did not amend the Braisa, it's meduyak b'yoiser. So back, the Braisa is not speaking about you made it into a new bread. So now, Vaita, the kasha is, you, Rav Yosef, are saying that if you have a bread that now, because you put it into a dish, the pieces are less than a kazayis, you make a bite of minimum zaynas. There, we're saying that you're yoitza eating matzah on Pesach, which means it's called a lechem. If it's a lechem, you got to make hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. So the Gemara says there's another detail important. If someone began with a lechem gadol, beba lechem gadol, means I have a large piece of bread, and I took a little piece off it. That little piece that's less than the kazayis, you know how I'm going to qualify that? Bread. Hamoitzi lechem in haaretz. Why? Because its source is still a lechem. Meaning the source from where it came has the size of a kazayis or more. Masha'inken Rabbi Yosef is speaking about a scenario where no part of the bread is in the size of a kazayis anymore. That means that when we come from our source, many times our definition has to do with the source's definition. And how fortunate is that when it comes to Ruchnis de Kenyonim? We all come from a holy source. No matter how fabrekled we become, even if the spark of godliness is less than a kazayas, we're good. Because we come from the Lechem Gadol. Amazing concepts. You know, what bracha do you make on it? So Rabbi Yosef says if it's less than a kazayas, theoretically, no longer bread. But if the source is still a bread, even this piece, even though it's detached, is still bread.
That's what the debate Shmuel was talking about.
And that's why. No, that's not the way Rabbi Shmuel. That's just explaining that the Braisa that says that you make your yoitzi de achilas matzah, that's because it came from a lechem gadol. But Rabbi Yosef is still standing his ground that if the lechem gadol is no longer in existence, all of it was fabrekled, then you would only make a b'day minim zoynus. Going back to the Kahanim, according to Rabbi Shmuel, Danny, the Kahanim and the Beis Hamikdash, since before they made the kemitza, pasas oisa pita means to break it into crumbs, they would make a b'day minim zoynus. They would make a b'day minim zoynus. Now, my havalam. No, do we paskin like Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rab Sheishes? So Rab Sheishes agrees with the ratio of Rabbi Yosef. If the crumbs are a kazayas, everyone says you make hamoitz. Rabbi Yosef, who was lenient, if the pirurim is less than a kazayas, Rab Sheishes disagrees. Hi chavitza. And this is a chavetz dish. It begins with bread, then you make it into a cooked dish, and because of that, the bread begins to change and it gets broken into pieces. Afal gav the lace bei pirurin kazayis, even if the crumbs don't have the minimum amount of a kazayis, still mevarech olav hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. In other words, there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yosef and Rab Sheishes regarding pirurim that don't have a kazayis, whether it retains lechem status, even if the lechem gadol is no longer there or not. Amar Rava. For who, even according to Rab Sheishes, when could you make a hamoitzi, even though the crumbs are less than a kazayis and they are cooked in the dish? The ika alei toirisa de nahama. Taiches Rashi, the first line under the Gemara, toirisa de nahama toyar maris lechem. It has the appearance of bread. So we're adding another very important dimension, criterion, qualification. It's not just size, it's about appearance. At least it looks like the bread. Taka doesn't have the size of a kazayis, says Rab Sheishes hamoitz. But even Rab Sheishes will be moide that if it's not only in quantity little, but if it doesn't look like it anymore, then you make a mezoinus, but you don't make a hamoitz. Next, tiroi konin. What is Torah Kanan? We'll see in a moment. Question is whether it's chayiv in challah or not. Now, challah is not taken from a zoynus. When you make a cake, how are you going to take a challah? It's batter. It's not dough. But, teroi nisa, chidish, you are chayiv challah. Now, let's right away link it. Something that's mechuyev to be chalad, what bracha would you make? Hamoitzi. Something that is exempt from challah, what bracha would you make? By the minimum zoynus. V'chi also Rav and Amar Rabbi Yechanan that tiroi kanin is pater min challah. So first we'll learn a whole machlokes. Now we'll have to learn what are they debating about. That's the seder of Torah. So for the Gemara, my tiroi kanin. So Amar Abaye kuva da'ara. Kuva da'ara. Look inside the Rashi again. The first line under the Gemara. All right, a kuva that's made in the ground. That oisa mekoim chalol bekira. A person makes in the oven, in the ground, he makes a cavity, and he puts in there mayim vekemach. And why is he putting the water and the dough in a cavity? Because it is battery. Why doesn't it spread out? Because there is a cavity inside the oven. When the product is ready, it's bread-like. But you're started out with a watery batter. Not with a dough, it's called batter. So there's a machlokes whether you're chayiv chala or not, meaning whether you make a mezoinus, whether you make a hamoitzi. Let's go weiter. Ve'amar Abaya, Teresa, we'll see soon what Teresa is. Petura menachalo. That's exempt from Amai Teresa. Either it is govil meratach. Govil meratach means scalded batter. So he writes over here that they would mamish make, again, they would mix flour with water, a lot of water, and today would be maybe like a pancake. What you would do is that you would have a flat top that's hot, not an oven, and you wouldn't even put it in a form. You would pour it, Rashi says, on that oven top, and when you pour it on there, like it spreads out. So Mela, the kuva, because it went in the cavity, at least when it's finished, it's bread-like. There's a height to it, there's a form to it. This is like a spread out, thin.
The Persian sangak bread is like that.
Exactly, whatever Danny said. It was all Zayin. All right, Teresa. So that's, either it's that, you understand, this is all, it doesn't look like bread. Or v'ika da amri, it means nahama de hindika, Indian bread. Indian bread, Rashi says, was they put dough, they make dough, but they would put it on a spit, and they would put it in the oven, and they would continuously smear on it, says Rashi, oil, eggs, a kebab made out of bread, mamish. So that is something that is halachically not bread, b'meila, no challah, b'meila, mezoinus is enough. Or ve'ikad amri, finally we get to the kutach, lechem that was made for kutach. Now, kutach was this delicious, what the Babylonian called delicious dish that's made out of rotten milk, moldy bread, and salt. That became a dip. So like this, Rashi adds a very important caveat, and that's a big machlokes rishonim. So first of all, we're introducing, that will be the last sugi we're learning today, what was the bread made for? Bread that was made for kutach, since it was made for a dip, never has a din of bread. L'Rashi, that's not enough for you to dequalify it from bread only into a pastry, into a mezoinus. It's not enough only since it was made for the dip of kutach. Rashi adds, look inside the last Rashi, ein oifen oise betaner ela b'chama, that it was not made in the oven. That bread was made in the sun. Which means, according to Rashi, if you have a normal piece bread, if it was made in the oven, even though it was made, you're a cook, it was made to go into a dip, according to Rashi, you would still have to make a hamoitzi, chayiv chala. Number one, it's made in the sun. It's not made like bread. And it's not made to be eaten by itself. All of that together is the reason why you don't have to take off challah. That's a third interpretation of what Abaya says. Now let's go into that. Tani Rabchia. Lechem ha'asli lekutach pater min hachala. Ay v'hatanya chayiv b'chala. So the Gemara says that Hassan in the second statement, chayiv chala, is kedektani taima. That Rabbi Yehuda says, ma'aseha mechichen oleha. No, it's one thing even with Rashi. Rashi adds it was made in the sun, but the Gemara uses the words it was made for kutach. How would you know what something was made for? Sometimes you look at it, and from the way it's made, you can see what it was made for. Which means, Gemara explains, Asa'an, turning to Daf Lamed Ches, ke oven, if it was made in rolls, it was shaped in rolls, it means effort was made to give it into a shape. Even though the guy says, well, I was planning from the outset then to break it up and to put it into a dip. The fact that you gave a form to it, that's the second braisa. Yechayev chala. Chayovin. But kilamudim means a board, like a pancake. It means you didn't even make an effort to give it a form. That's the raya that what? That it was made to put into a dip. That's why you didn't care what it looked like. And that's taka why you're puturim. Amalei Abaya le Rabbi Yosef, hai kuva da'ara. See, kuva da'ara is very, again, it's battery, but it goes into a cavity in the oven, so therefore the final product has a form. That's what Rabbi asked Rabbi. So Rabbi Yosef says, Mi savrat nahamahu. Why do you think it's bread? Even though it looks like bread? No, gufla ba'almahu. It's baked dough. It's battery. And therefore, as we just learned, an Amid Beis, that kuva da'ara is putura min achala. Putura min achala means you don't make hamoitzi, you make a b'rim in God willing to be continued.